CEO kept cheating, thinking wife would never divorce. Only when she left did he realize he loved her. This is a heartbreaking yet powerful story of love, betrayal, and redemption. A ruthless CEO cheats on his devoted wife, believing she will never leave. But when she finally walks out, he is forced to confront the emptiness of his life, the true meaning of love, and the painful price of regret. Set in the USA, this 15-chapter drama dives deep into family, ambition, heartbreak, and second chances. Chapter 1. The Perfect Illusion. Ethan Blake was the kind of man people whispered about in all. Tall, confident, and immaculately dressed, he was the face of Blake Enterprises, one of the fastest-growing real estate firms in New York. His photo often graced the covers of glossy magazines, the self-made billionaire, America's golden CEO. But beneath the glamour of tailored suits and sparkling skyscrapers was a marriage growing hollow. Emily Blake, his wife of 7 years, stood quietly at his side at every gala, charity event, and board dinner. She wasn't the type who craved the spotlight. With her gentle smile, chestnut hair, and soft-spoken nature, she was Ethan's opposite in every way. Where he was bold, she was thoughtful. Where he craved attention, she longed for peace. Everyone thought they were the perfect couple. Two outsiders, their lives seemed like a dream: private jets, Hampton getaways, penthouse dinners with chandeliers dripping gold. But Emily lived a truth no magazine cover could capture. She was lonely. Every evening, Ethan came home late, his phone glued to his ear, his lips pressing rushed kisses against her cheek before disappearing into his study. When she tried to ask about his day, he dismissed her with, "Later, I'm exhausted." Later never came. Their conversations dwindled to nothing more than polite exchanges about groceries, bills, and schedules. Ethan didn't notice that Emily stopped decorating the dining table or that she began eating dinner alone, and deep down, Emily knew something, or rather someone, had replaced her. Chapter 2. The first betrayal. It started with whispers in the office. Ethan had always been charming, but lately his attention had focused on Sophie, his new secretary. She was younger, ambitious, and always dressed to impress. One night when Emily called to ask if he'd be home for dinner, Sophie was the one who answered his phone. Her laughter echoed through the line before Ethan snatched it away. "Wrong number, Emily, don't wait up," he said coldly before hanging up. Emily sat at the kitchen table, her fork untouched beside a plate of now-cold pasta she had cooked just for him. The lies piled up quickly: late meetings, urgent flights, business partners needing attention. But Emily wasn't naive. She knew what lipstick stains on his shirts and faint perfume traces meant. She cried quietly in their bedroom, pressing her face into his pillow, wondering when she had stopped being enough. For Ethan, it was different. He convinced himself it was harmless, as just an escape from the stress. Sophie, and the other women who followed, were distractions. Emily would never leave. She was too loyal, too dependent, too forgiving. At least, that's what he thought. Chapter 3. The Ignored Heart. Emily tried to save their marriage. She suggested trips together, date nights, small gestures to bring them back. "Ethan, maybe we should spend some time away from the city," she said one morning over breakfast. "Just us, like we used to." Ethan didn't even look up from his tablet. "Emily, stop being dramatic. The company can't run itself." Her chest tightened. She longed for the man she once knew, the one who had held her hand on Brooklyn Bridge at midnight, promising forever. The man who wrote her letters when they were young, filling pages with love. But now Ethan had become a stranger who lived in the same house but gave her nothing of himself. The loneliness became unbearable. Nights stretched long, and the only company she had was the ticking clock on the wall. Emily began journaling, pouring her broken heart into words. In those pages, she admitted truths she never dared speak aloud. "I don't think he loves me anymore. Maybe he never did." Chapter 4. The Breaking Point. The breaking point came on a rainy Friday evening. Emily decided to surprise Ethan at his office. She carried a small box, his favorite homemade lemon bars, something she used to bake back when he actually noticed her efforts. She entered quietly, greeted by the glow of city lights through the glass walls of his office. But she froze when she saw him. Ethan wasn't working. He wasn't alone. Sophie sat on his lap, laughing as Ethan kissed her neck. The box slipped from Emily's hands, crashing to the floor, lemon bars scattering across polished marble. The sound made Ethan turn. For a moment, guilt flashed in his eyes, but then arrogance covered it. "Emily, this isn't what it looks like." Tears blurred her vision. "Don't insult me, Ethan. I can't do this anymore." She turned and walked out before he could stop her. For the first time in years, she didn't cry on the way home. Instead, she felt something colder, sharper. Resolve. Chapter 5. Silent tears. The weekend passed in silence. Emily avoided Ethan, retreating into the guest room. When Ethan tried to talk, she no longer begged or argued. She simply looked at him with hollow eyes and said, "I have nothing left to give you." Memories haunted her: their first kiss under a summer rain, the way he once chased her through Central Park, the vows they exchanged at a small church in Boston. How had they gone from love to this? That night, Emily stood before the mirror, holding her wedding ring. It felt heavy on her. Finger no longer a promise but a shackle. With trembling hands, she slid it off. For the first time, she allowed herself to whisper the words she had feared for years. I deserve better. Chapter 6. Divorce Papers. On Monday morning, Emily walked into her lawyer's office. Her hands trembled as she signed the papers, each stroke of the pen carving away 7 years of broken promises. The lawyer, a kind woman named Marissa, looked at her gently. Are you sure you're ready for this, Emily? Emily nodded, her eyes steady. I've been ready for years. I just didn't have the courage until now. Later that evening, Ethan arrived home, expecting dinner on the table like always. Instead, he found an envelope on the counter. When he tore it open, the words hit him like a punch: petition for divorce. For the first time, Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. He stormed into the guest room where Emily sat calmly reading. What the hell is this? He shouted, waving the papers. It's what I should have done a long time ago, Emily said quietly. I'm leaving, Ethan. I won't be your shadow anymore. Ethan scoffed. You're bluffing. You wouldn't survive without me. Emily closed her book and met his eyes. Watch me. Chapter 7. The public phone news travels fast in New York's elite circles. By the end of the week, gossip columns were buzzing. CEO's wife files for divorce amid cheating scandal. Investors grew restless. Blake Enterprises stock wavered. Ethan walked into board meetings only to feel the weight of judgmental stares. His image, the perfect husband, the golden businessman, was shattered. His phone buzzed non-stop with reporters demanding comments. At a gala he attended alone, whispers followed him everywhere. Did you hear? She finally left him. About time. He treated her like furniture. For the first time in his career, Ethan wasn't admired. He was pitied, and pitied men in power were dangerous. They could fall. And they could fall hard. Chapter 8. Loneliness and luxury. Ethan returned to the penthouse one night. Exhausted and furious, he poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared at the empty dining table. Emily's laughter, once the soundtrack of his evenings, was gone. Her scent no longer lingered in the bedroom. He walked into the guest room where she had stayed during her last weeks in the house. The bed was neatly made, the closet empty. The silence pressed in on him, louder than any noise. For the first time in years, Ethan realized how empty his world was without her. He whispered into the dark, Emily, where are you? But no one answered. Chapter 9. The other women leave too. At first, Ethan tried to distract himself. Sophie was still around, but when she saw his reputation crumbling and his stock price falling, she began to drift away. One night, when Ethan invited her to dinner, she declined. You're not the man I thought you were, Ethan. I can't afford to be tied to a sinking ship. Soon after, the other women's models, the so-called friends, all disappeared too. None of them cared about him. They only cared about his power, his name, his money, and without Emily, he realized, he had none of those things. The irony cut him deeply. The woman he neglected was the only one who had truly loved him. Chapter 10. A chance encounter. Weeks later, Ethan was walking through Central Park, lost in thought, when he saw her. Emily. She was sitting on a bench, laughing with a friend, her face glowing in a way he hadn't seen in years. She looked lighter, freer, as if a burden had lifted from her shoulders. For a moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. He approached cautiously, his voice trembling. Emily. She turned, her laughter fading when she saw him. For the first time, her eyes didn't soften. They stayed firm, guarded. What do you want, Ethan? She asked. He swallowed hard. I just wanted to see you. Her friend excused herself, leaving them alone. Ethan sat beside her, but the space between them felt like a canyon. You look happy, he said softly. I am, Emily replied. Happier without lies. Her words pierced him more than any headline ever could. Ethan wanted to beg, to plead, but he saw the wall she had built around herself. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Blake, the man who thought he could have everything, realized he had lost the only thing that mattered. Chapter 11. His desperate plea. After that chance encounter, Ethan couldn't stay away. He began sending flowers to Emily's apartment, leaving voicemails, writing long emails late at night. Emily, please, I know I failed you. I'll change. I'll do anything. But Emily didn't answer. She had built her new life carefully, brick by brick, away from his shadow. She had joined an art class, reconnected with friends she once abandoned for his corporate dinners, and even started freelancing as a designer. Her world was small but genuine, and Ethan had no place in it. One evening, he showed up at her apartment building. She opened the door, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. You need to stop, she said firmly. You don't get to waltz back into my life because you're lonely now. I'm not lonely, Emily. I'm empty without you, Ethan admitted, his voice breaking. I didn't know what love was until you left. But Emily shook her head. No, Ethan, you knew, you just didn't value it. She closed the door, and Ethan stood there in the hallway, crushed. Chapter 12. Facing himself for the first time in his life, Ethan sought help. He started therapy, peeling back layers of arrogance, betrayal, and childhood scars he had buried under money and success. He learned that he had equated love with possession, loyalty with submission. He wrote in a journal, much like Emily once, had I broke the only promise that mattered. I don't deserve her forgiveness, but I want to deserve it. He cut ties with meaningless flings. He began showing up for his employees in ways he never had, listening, encouraging, mentoring. Slowly, the man he used to be, the one Emily once loved, began to re-emerge. But was it too late? Chapter 1-3 A crisis brings them together. It was Emily's younger brother Daniel who brought them back together. Late one night, Ethan received a call. Daniel had been in a car accident, and Emily was at the hospital, distraught. Without hesitation, Ethan rushed there. He found Emily in the waiting room, pale and trembling. Without asking, he sat beside her and held her hand. For a moment, she didn't pull away. Hours later, when the doctor assured them Daniel would recover, Emily broke down in tears. Ethan gently wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if she were the most fragile thing in the world. "I'm here, Emily," he whispered, "and I'm not going anywhere." For the first time in months, Emily let herself lean on him. Chapter 14 A fragile reconnection. In the weeks that followed, Ethan quietly supported her, driving her to the hospital, handling paperwork, even cooking meals for her family. He didn't try to push, he simply stayed, steady and consistent. Emily began noticing the difference. He listened when she spoke. He apologized without excuses. He no longer acted like the powerful CEO who could buy anything. He acted like a man who wanted to be better. One evening, as they walked out of the hospital, Ethan said softly, "I don't expect forgiveness, Emily, but I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed, whether you take me back or not." Emily's heart ached. She wanted to believe him, but wounds like hers didn't heal overnight. Chapter 15 Love Reborn or Lost Forever. Months later, spring returned to New York. Emily stood on the Brooklyn Bridge, the same place where Ethan had once promised her forever. This time, Ethan approached quietly, not with flowers or gifts, but with humility. "I don't deserve another chance," he said, his voice low. "But if you ever find it in your heart to let me love you again, I promise I will never take you for granted." Emily looked at him, her eyes searching his face. For once, there was no arrogance, no charm, just sincerity. Her heart battled between fear and longing. She had rebuilt herself, learned to stand alone. But she also saw the man she once loved, the man who finally understood what love meant. After a long silence, Emily whispered, "I don't know if I can forget Ethan, but maybe, just maybe, I can try to forgive." Ethan's eyes filled with tears as he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. As the city lights shimmered around them, they stood together, fragile but hopeful, two broken souls daring to rebuild what once was lost.